acting boiled down to its essence is a pretty profound thing. I mean, you don't always get there on camera necessarily, but I was also 12 when I was really digging into it, and but for me it was professional at that age.
You were already working when you were that young?
Oh yeah, man. I was, so you moved to America. I moved to LA, which was like moving to the America of America. Which is,
right.
I moved to. I was working. I was being cast already. I mean, I had an agent, and a manager, all that stuff. I had my SAG card when I was 12.
Wow.
I remember seeing you at auditions in Los Angeles when it was probably 2006 or something.
So this would have been right before Gossip Girl?
Before Gossip Girl, for sure. And you also had a crew cut then. I remember that very well. You were doing crew cuts back then.
To be honest, from what I recall from that time, man, I'd been doing it already for 10 years. So I was about to, in my mind, I was about to check out. I was like, all right.
Yeah.
I'd been on like 4 failed series. I was honestly thinking about just playing music and getting a job as a waiter as Gossip Girl came around. And so I was pretty disillusioned with especially the audition process. Auditions for me then, and they continue now, when I do have them, it's my least favorite part of the entire apparatus of what we do. And there's a lot to what we do that can be less than what you want to do, And auditioning, I think there was a stage where I know that when I went in, I didn't want to see people this way. I'm actually not an inherently competitive person, but I saw everyone just as competition, as like, just,
of course,
it's so terrifying.
It's
just like it really is actually like the worst, because all you're doing is looking at every other guy there who's literally made to be like you, because you're all going for the same role, and it's really like, oh, that's not what I'm like. Yep, he's like that, not like me.
How do you lose yourself so much in each role?
I don't know. I mean, there were great opportunities, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I think there's timing and there's opportunities sometimes, and like, there are certain things that sort of instinctively you feel more right, and these jobs that you're referring to, like these, were sort of somehow lined up in the right way. I mean, I worked hard. I definitely don't want to minimize that. Quarantine really helped me in a way, like specifically with Fresh, and then also Pam and Tommy. Like Fresh, I had these 2 weeks in Canada where I couldn't leave the apartment I was in, and then all I was doing was just like nonstop the same thing, which was like working on it nonstop, and the focus of that really taught me, like, you don't always get the same chance because you have family, you have things, life and stuff pulling at you, but that time was really helped me out. And then similarly with I had another sort of couple weeks before we started the Pam and Tommy show, and all I was doing was just morning till night, and I think it was an interesting learning lesson.
Like, what impact does that have on you, Sebastian, the person, having to embody those like really extreme, intense moments?
I don't know. It's like, weirdly, I don't, like, you can't think about it in the moment. Like, it's like a bizarre thing that happens because with every job, you sort of have a couple of those days where they're coming and you mark them on the calendar and you're like, oh God, like this day I'm going to have to like cry, or like this day it's going to have to be whatever crazy. And you kind of just pace yourself as you get closer and closer to those days. But the truth is, on those days, you just sort of have to kind of just say, fuck it, and like go there, I guess. And I find that the more I've kind of like analyze it or something, the more I have a harder time getting there. So I don't really have like an answer. I just sort of feel the sort of like the call and the pressure in the moment to be like, well, this has to happen now. And like, then it will just go there. But I've noticed that it also helps when you have the right support system, the right people that you can feel comfortable with, a director who can kind of hold your hand as you're starting to overthink everything, and then if it's the right earned moment because the script has built up to that, then you have confidence that you're not sort of like overdoing it or anything like that. I felt like, you've explored all those sort of complexities of someone who has these obsessive tendencies, but then they're human too, and finding that balance but I would say that your nervous system ultimately doesn't really know that it's
can't.
not real. It can't. It's just it's just reacting, and I think that's why you always sort of have to. There's a bird's eye view of the situation that has to be there to be like, it's like meditating. I don't know if anybody meditates here or whatever, but when you meditate, they say you're watching yourself in the experience. And I think there has to be something like that so that you can still measure it out. Because otherwise it just becomes like all over the place. For
sure. This balance between letting this nervous process take over you while having enough of a rational mind left over, an analytical mind to be. It's a very, very strange threshold to straddle, and it's sometimes for multiple hours a day you got to stay in this place because a scene requires it. You're shooting the scene all day. I'm in the middle of the sort of climax of my season right now, and I just feel like every day I go to work and I am expressing rage and misery, and it's just it's just taxing.
I think I've learned if you go, once you go home, I think sometimes it really does help to sort of just do the opposite, and I think it does help sort of, your friends, your family, you kind of have to have those things that can always anchor you in a way.